Welcome to Sinister Heroes. I'm your host, Danny Iniquitous. Thank you for tuning in. Today's episode, we're going to talk about the Swarmkeeper Ranger. I've played this subclass before, and I had a great time doing so I'm pretty excited about this. But first, if you like what we do here, please like, share, and subscribe. Please continue to comment. We love seeing you guys comment, seeing your ideas, seeing how well thought out they are, and how very cool the perspective is that you guys have, and we're just so happy that some of them mirror some of our opinions here, and we're so glad to hear from you. We love it so much. So let's jump into what the Ranger is and some of the things about it that most people don't tend to fully understand. So the Ranger had a very difficult start once 5E was launched. A lot of people thought it was underpowered, and immediately once that happens, it tends to draw a certain amount of attention from me, because I like classes that look underpowered, but kind of just required a lot of real critical thinking to make viable or good or really strong. And so the Ranger really caught my eye about that. I think a lot of the things were viable. I think a lot of people just don't have the same expectations that they should. A lot of people tend to think that all classes should be based on a certain level of damage going across the board, but each class is supposed to be different. You're supposed to be stronger at certain points as a class than other classes, and that's supposed to be divvied out somewhat throughout the different stages of the game. So the Ranger had a lot of heat from that. I think a lot of people didn't play the Ranger after that, even after some of the revisions came out, because of how it was really seemed. The Beastmaster Ranger took a major hit when it came out, but if you really did your homework and really looked at the beasts that you had available, you could do a lot of cool stuff with it. It required a little bit of outside of the box thinking, but you could make it very viable. A lot of people didn't want to go through that effort, so a lot of it just kind of hit zero and just kind of got forgotten. But when Tashas came out, they put in a whole bunch of optional features, and they made the Ranger so much stronger, and it really worked out very well. And the Ranger now, because of those optional features, is incredibly strong. Favored Foe gives you, at first level, it's D4, like a concentration, additional damage whenever you hit. So it bumps up to D6 and a D8 later on. It's a great way to get a free Hunter's Mark, kind of, because that's basically how it works. And it requires you concentration, so it's a good thing to have when you don't want to use a spell slot. But a lot of the things about the Rangers is nobody really uses the spell slots, and sees really the availability that the Ranger has as far as spells that are unique to the Ranger, that are incredibly viable, that people should really use. You should really kind of think of them as like skill techs or sword skills, or not necessarily spells, but more so as weapon skills. And try and use them as a resource like that to help benefit yourself and put yourself in a viable situation. But one of the things I really wanted to talk to you about the optional features was Nature's Veil. This is a level 10 feature. It is awesome, and I think it works really, really well with the Ranger, specifically with the Swarmkeeper. Basically, it makes you turn invisible for a turn, and it requires your bonus action, which is awesome. And you get to do it a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. So it's very cool. You can do it a lot of times. It's fun. It's exciting. It's a great way to do a couple of attacks and then disappear and help give yourself some survivability. That being said, Ranger is one of those subclasses that I want to say don't fear picking 2-weapon fighting for, because you can get a lot out of it here. Because the amount of your attacks are limited, what you can do, it's going to benefit you if you are going to go into melee to maybe get that third attack and see what else you can do with it. Just saying, a lot of people don't like it because of the fighting style, the way it works, and the damage ratio. Let me tell you, if you're with 2 or 3 points of damage to whatever you should be, you're doing pretty good. I don't think you need specific feats to be on point with everything else. Again, you can just be you. As long as you're hitting, you're doing something. So with that long rant out of the way, let's get into what makes the Swarmkeeper Ranger so cool. At 3rd level, when you choose this subclass, you get an ability that's called Gathered Swarm. Now, this is important for 2 reasons. First and foremost, this is the defining ability for who you are as a Swarmkeeper. And secondly, this is what your attack is going to be, and it's effective every turn for you to consider doing one of these things. Now, at 3rd level, a swarm of intangible nature spirits has bonded itself to you and can assist you in battle. Until you die, the swarm remains in your space, crawling on you or flying and skittering around you within your space. You determine its appearance or you generate it as by rolling on the swarm appearance table. Now, they give you a swarming insects, miniature twig blights, fluttering birds, or playful pixies. If you're on this channel and you do not pick swarming insects or miniature twig blights, you are in the wrong place. I love the idea of insects. When I played this character, it was yellow jackets, it was wasps, like just consistently all over me, and sometimes they would merge into one giant face and like amalgamation of wasps that kind of formed their own wasp, and it was just all over me at all times. Twig blights are like nasty little evil looking twig people that are really small, that are just kind of climbing on you and jumping off you and stuff. The creep factor is there. That's why I love it. It's cool. It feels that like gross, like, oh, and it's constant. It does not go away. Understand that this has RP implementation, or at least the capability of that. People should be very, very wary of being next to you. They should probably not like being interrogated by you because you are just swarmed with insects. It is creepy. It is scary. It is a wonderful ability to have, and it's just basically for flavor. It's cool. Really go for it. I hope you DMs really take that into consideration when interacting with a Swarmkeeper, and especially with other things that are not nature oriented or fate oriented that would seriously have a problem with that. Secondly, when the actual mechanical abilities of this is that it gives your attacks can deal a 1d6 piercing damage from the swarm. Immediately after you hit a creature on attack, you can choose one of these things, one of them being the d6 damage. The victim of the attack might also be forced into make a strength saving throw against your spell save DC, or be moved up to 15 feet horizontally in the direction of your choice, or you are moved 5 feet horizontally in a direction of your choice. This is a way that will push you out of an opportunity strike as long as someone's range isn't 10 feet. It can also maneuver them into a very advantageous position if that's something you're looking for. Maybe you have a partner that has the sentinel feat, so when someone enters into the area, they can hit them with the reaction, and that might be very, very beneficial. So this is one of those things where you get a little bit of tactical ability. You can also just do increased damage. Understand, it only occurs when you make an attack, and it is not restricted to melee attacks. So you can do this from range. So it really opens up some of the things you can do as a Swarmkeeper. It's cool, it's creepy, you get to manipulate bugs. Enjoy it. It's fun. You're going to have a lot of fun using this ability. Your second ability at 3rd level is Swarmkeeper Magic. First and foremost, you learn the Mage Hand cantrip. Now, what's cool about this is this does not take the hand, the form of the spectral hand. It is your nature spirits floating out into the world, doing whatever you command it to do. Very cool, very thematic. It's a lot of fun. It's just really a free cantrip. It's a free way to manipulate things. You can do cool stuff with it. You can open doors. You can try and distract other people with it. Very, very cool. More so a utility thing for a more intelligent player that's really sat down and analyzed things. I'm not that smart of a guy. So a lot of the times I'll use this for generic things, like trying to, maybe if I got trapped in an area and trying to manipulate something across the room or something like that, that would be a situation in which I would be trying to use this. Or maybe I'm a horrible person, I'm trying to steal from a shopkeeper, talk to the shopkeeper, mage hand behind on the ground, grab some stuff, pull it around. Do what you want. It's up to you as a player. Mage hand, again, is one of those things where the more creative you are, the more detrimental it can be. And with all circle spells or domain spells that you gain, they do not count towards your spells known, and you always have them prepared. Some of the big standouts on this are very, very good. You get Fairy Fire, which is awesome. You get Web, which can be devastating if you get enough people with it. And Insect Plague. What's cool about Insect Plague, don't get me wrong, it's a high level for you to be able to cast it, but you throw it on if you have nothing else to concentrate on. And even if they fail, because your wisdom probably isn't going to be as high as it could be, they're still going to take half damage, and it's hard for them to see, and it's very like, a lot of people underestimate what heavily obscured is. Like, you can't see out. You know what I mean? Like, you can't see anything outside of that, so you can't target anything. And if you do just shoot blindly out there, you're shooting at disadvantage blindly out there. You can't really depict what you're shooting at because you're basically in the thick mass that you can't see through. So use that to your advantage, especially if you want to set up something in combat. Give your group a moment or two to set something up mid-fight to change the dynamics and really go for it. It's cool. You get some good abilities. Again, ranger spellcasting is not something people tend to look for. A lot of the times they just think it just sits there and does nothing. There's a lot of good abilities you can get from it. If you don't know what to do, throw a web out there, throw a fairy fire, or buff yourself. They have utility. Don't walk away from it or think it's a pointless thing not even to look into. Really, really, really look into it. There's a lot of abilities in there that buff your attack anyway, so feel free to use your spells. At 7th level, you gain access to Writhing Tide. You condense part of your swarm into a focused mass that lifts you up as a bonus action. You gain flying speed equal to 10 feet and can hover. The effect lasts a minute or until you are incapacitated. You can use this feature of number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. It's a little interesting why it's only 10 feet, but understand using this outside of combat, you can't take the dash action. It's a bonus action, so you can do a lot of things. Moving 20 feet isn't really so bad. Flight is a very powerful thing in certain circumstances. Most of the time, it's really not as good as people think. But for exploration and things that you need to do, being able to fly and being able to hover is pretty important. So you don't get knocked down immediately and thrown to the ground. But again, you're a ranger, so you can wear medium armor. You have pretty good HP, so you can take a few hits if you have to do this in combat. It's really one of those things that a tactical person would have the most benefit with. Again, it can help you reach places that you normally couldn't. Maybe get onto a ledge before a fight and be out of melee range and really rain down if you're built that way. But again, tactical people really going to have fun with that because they love the ability to fly. And you can do a lot of cool things with it because you're now just hovering. So you can hang out in one spot and just be there for a minute. Again, you can recast this before that time and just extend it so that way it's just renewed. So you have a little bit of time and you won't be using this a lot. So when you do get the opportunity, feel free to burn all those proficiency bonuses to gain whatever it is that you're after while doing this. At 11th level, you gain Mighty Swarm. Your gathered swarm grows mightier in the following ways. The damage of gathered swarm increases to 1d8. If a creature fails its saving throw against being pushed by gathered swarm, you can also cause the swarm to knock it prone. When you are moved by the gathered swarm, it gives you half cover until your next turn. This is awesome. You get it at 11th level, so a lot of campaigns are about to end at this point, so you get a little bit of a damage boost, plus you can knock someone prone. Doing that on the first attack will give your second attack advantage, as well as anyone else that's melee attacking afterwards. Also, if you are in a tight spot, you can push yourself away from the enemy and give yourself half cover and boost your AC for any other attacks that are coming in the next round. You can mark that with Nature's Veil and become invisible, and now you're gaining a significant defensive bonus at a very good point. Understand, as a ranger, you might be consistently comparing your damage to other people. Don't do that. It's going to hinder your availability to enjoy your class, because at certain points it might not seem like you're doing enough, but you have a lot of things that are going for you. Remember, you can put Favored Foe on and add additional damage per round, and you have this as a free damage option as well as a defensive option. So you can choose to be more survivable than you are offensive, and you get that nice little play that you don't normally have with characters, and you actively make that choice. So be ready to sometimes choose survivability over numbers, and just feel free to play with that. Don't be pigeonholed into just worrying about doing as much damage as possible. Again, you can use Mighty Swarm from range, so don't be afraid to pull back, shoot some arrows, and then push somebody, knock them prone on the last hit, if it'll give other people who are close to it that availability to have advantage on their next attacks. It's very useful. Don't think just about damage here, because you can do other cool things. And don't be worried about giving yourself half cover for the next turn in case you know what's coming up. Maybe you're the only person in melee range. Maybe you're up there so that way somebody else can get back because they need to heal up because they'll get demolished. You know, fighters get hit a lot. Barbarians get hit a lot. Sometimes they need to back up for a moment. If you can take one of those 2 hits so they can get back into the fight, this will be a great way to do so, and absorbing some of those attacks and being able to dodge them because your AC is pretty high at this point. You have a lot of cool things you can do. It's very viable. You know, the more creative you are and the more you understand how your party plays, the stronger this ability is. At 15th level, you gain my favorite ability. This is Swarming Dispersal. This is so much fun. It's so cool to use. You're going to want to use this every single time, and it is worth it. So you can discorporate into your swarm, avoiding danger. When you take damage, you can use a reaction to give yourself resistance to that damage, and you vanish into your swarm and then teleport to an unoccupied space you can see within 30 feet of you, where you will reappear with the swarm. You can use this a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. Understand how cool this is. Say you're fighting a monster that has multi-attack. They hit you once. Swarming Dispersal, jump away 30 feet. If they had to move up to catch you, the chances that they have the movement to catch you again is very, very limited. It's very cool that you have this ability. It's very cool that it gives you resistance. It's a teleport. If you're grappled, you get out of it. And it gives you a 30-foot teleport that you kind of just fall into your swarm, and the swarm just emerges you in a different area. It looks cool. It feels cool. It's creepy to see a bunch of bugs just like pile up out of nowhere and you just erupt from underneath them. Very thematic, very cool. If you add this with the Nature's Veil that we had discussed earlier, where you can become invisible, there's a lot of defensive options you have where you can take your round, go invisible. And if you don't go invisible, you can stay out in the field, and then when you get hit, Swarming Dispersal. It's cool. It feels great. If you're built as a ranged ranger and you did take the fighting style archery and you decided to hang back and do those kinds of things, this is wildly important to you, because now you can keep your range and your distance, and it's incredibly beneficial for you. And you can shoot them, you can push them back with your gathered swarm, and you can keep that distance and keep just raining arrows. There's a lot of cool things you can do with this. It's so useful. The hard part is not using it every moment you get the chance to, and really waiting for those really important moments when you desperately need it. Big bads that grapple you and then attack you again. Take the grapple so no one else gets grappled again, and then vanish so that way you don't have to get hit again, and that ability isn't used again for the next opportunity. It's so cool. Like it feels good using it, and by this time you're using it about 6 times a day, give or take. So there's really if you're getting in that much trouble that you need to use this more than that, you got to reassess your personal choices. But that is a lot for an ability this awesome. I cannot stress how cool this is. If this doesn't make you want to play a high-level campaign and be a ranger, I'd be pretty hard-pressed to find something that would. My final thoughts on the Swarmkeeper Ranger. It is fun. If you want to play a very elusive kind of a character, this is it. You get invisibility. You get half cover, you get swarming dispersal, you could jump in and out of things pretty effectively. You're the only class that can literally run up to something, attack, back away, get hit with that opportunity attack, and teleport away so you can guarantee someone else can escape. You have a lot of cool tricks you can do. To be able to do those things, you just got to be a little brave in combat, and you got to be willing to think a little bit outside of the box. There's creative things you can do. If you have someone that put down spike growth on the ground and they start walking through, start pushing them back with Mighty Swarm every chance you get, that's going to do some damage, and that's going to be able to mitigate some of the damage an enemy can do to you. You have a lot of options as a ranger. Please look through the spell list. There's a lot of cool things that are just weapon skills that you don't have to have a high wisdom in order to cast. You just got to be able to look into and pick them up. Very cool. Look through them. There's a lot of fun that can be had with this class. Don't think too much about whether or not you're going to be doing as much damage, or you can do this or you can do that, because there's plenty of ways to do that. You could always pick up sharpshooter if you want to be one of those characters that are really dedicated to being a ranged physical damage dealer. It's cool, it's fun. The important thing is that you embrace how incredibly creepy it is to walk around with bugs constantly crawling on your skin. If you wanted to play something like a Reborn, like where you're partially undead and you just have them crawling in you, or maybe you're a Warforged and you just have them breaking in and out of all of like your little cracks of your armor and your mechanisms and things like that, and it's so cool, it's thematic, it's fun, it gives you this wild character that you can create that's just, it's tied to nature, it's tied to being a ranger, and it's tied to being that darker part of being a ranger where you're constantly out on the outskirts, where you're not in the cities, where you're dealing with just threats that are not outside, that are not capable of coming into the city, because people don't want to be near you, but they trust that you can do something that's very important. Rangers are not normally what a soldier is. They are normally somebody who's out in the woods that's taking care of things, that's hunting down animals because there's too many wolves in the area. They're doing stuff like that. They're taking out threats that shouldn't make their way towards towns. There's goblin brigades coming in. They're weeding them off so that way they don't get to the city and they turn away. They are scary. They're not the soldier in town you look for when you're in trouble going to, hey, help me. Like, rangers are like tough, gritty people. They're used to surviving out in the elements and not having, like, it seems to not have that kind of safety net or team support. So there's a lot of self-reliability in a ranger. So I mean, again, that's our opinion, but you know, you can incorporate that, and this helps to reinforce that idea that, you know, you are not pretty, but you are really effective. And that's really what's cool about the ranger. You get this kind of like versatility where you can do a lot of cool things, and it's very cool, and you really just got to be willing to take a chance. And if you're worried about damage, there's a lot of things you would have to do, but if you want to have fun and be able to do a lot of cool things and still be viable damage wise, you're gonna have a lot of fun in this class. Specifically, this subclass is a lot of fun if you like being creepy. But that's gonna bring this video to a close. Thank you for giving a creepy kid a chance, and hope to see you again soon.